First of all, thanks for coming. Thanks for all of you on Zoom. Just as a follow-up to yesterday, I just want to thank all of those people who have reached out through social media, through texts, through phone calls, through emails. It was a little overwhelming. I still haven't got back to everybody, but it's an interesting time, and how to respond to it and everything else is different and how much of the press release people read. Some people thought I quit altogether and I'm fully on retirement and I don't have to do anything but go on vacation. So I'm still around to bother people for a while. It's much appreciated. I also want to reiterate my thanks to Ted and Sheila and the rest of the Monumental Ownership Group for what they've done for the Mystics and women's basketball, particularly for us and our staff and our players, because when you set out to try to be a great organization and win championships, you need every bit of support that you can get. And I would say we've had that as good as anybody. When you look out in this arena and this practice facility and the concept of monumental basketball and all the different things that means to us, it's been terrific. I mean, it's almost like I'm making a pitch for free agents right now, but it's a sense that, we're very lucky here, and anybody that comes here to play has the opportunity to play with great teammates, in front of great fans, with great support of ownership. But we have a lot of resources here that, frankly, I didn't have before I came here. And as the league has grown, we've gotten better. I mean, our medical staff and our diet and nutrition and our technology and our community relations and our, player development, both on and off the court. We have so many things that are part of monumental basketball that, for us going forward as a staff, we have so many resources that we're excited about, all the things that we can do going forward. And it's one of the reasons that, I felt very comfortable making the decision that I did. That we were going to be able to continue to do all the things that we wanted to do, as a basketball team and as an organization in the community. And it's been a privilege for 10 years to be able to do this, and I'm excited about doing it with these guys and with our players going forward. One other thing, I would like to recognize 3 people in the room, our spouses, Nancy and Drea and Veronica, wherever, all of them back here. They're the ones that have to put up with us when we come home and have our moments of complaining, but they're also the ones that understand this business as much as anybody. And so I know this is a Q&A session for us, but what they've done to help us, and then we have a lot of our staff here. We've been very fortunate over the course of the 10 years that I've been here to retain a lot of people and have people grow on our staff. And it's fun to come to work every day when you kind of have that family atmosphere. And so I feel really good about it. My next task in all this is to introduce you to the head coach, the new head coach of the Washington Mystics, Eric Thibault.
Hey everybody. Thanks for being here. Nice to see you all. Before I get going on my thank yous, as a head coach in this league, I'm enormously privileged to coach some of the best athletes and people in the world, and one of those people, one of our very finest, is Brittany Griner, and I think I'd be remiss not to say that she's been wrongfully detained now for 272 days in Russia, and we call as a league, as an organization, as our staff to, for our leaders, our national leaders, to work and do everything they can to bring her home, because we miss her. We miss her as part of this league, and she's just such a wonderful human being. So thank you to Ted Leonsis, Sheila Johnson, everybody else at Monumental Basketball. We have such great support, as Coach T was mentioning. They've showed, our ownership showed such consistent support for our franchise, the Mystics, in the league. We sit in this great facility here. We've been shown great respect as part of Monumental Basketball and everything that comes with that, which Coach detailed. And Ted and Sheila and Lorene Powell Jobs, part of the league's capital raise, which puts real dollars into making this league everything it can be. Thank you to my family who's here. Drea was mentioned before, and our little one who's on the way here very soon. My mom's here, and I know my sister Carly and her husband Blake are watching up in Fairfield. Go Stags, coming for the home opener Friday night. We're excited for that. I'd like to thank our staff and, of course, to congratulate Maria and LaToya. I couldn't think of better people to be on this journey with. I've been fortunate, Maria and I have been fortunate to have 10 years now working side by side, and long may that continue. I want to shout out some other members of our staff who will be with us and have just been a wonderful group of people. Shelly Patterson, Sefu Bernard, Andrew Wade, Emma Skinker, our medical staff, Sarah Walls, Christina Kennedy, Kala Flagg, and Amy Bracey, who has been here longer than us. And a special shout out to Mary Ann Stanley and Asia Jones and everybody who's been part of this Mystics family with us. I think Daniel's still hiding in the back over there, my guy Daniel Villarreal. And I'd like to thank our players, each and every one who has pulled on a Mystics jersey these past 10 years. Getting to work with them is why this is the best job in the world. And I'm really excited to continue that journey with them as we strive to hit all our goals that we want to reach. Thanks to our fans, 25 years now in the books, through the highs and lows, and we know the difference they made on Game 5 in the championship series, and we expect they'll make the difference again. And we're going to do everything we can to play with the type of fire and passion that they expect and they deserve. And lastly, I don't think I'm going to get emotional, but I'm going to thank my dad, who just created an environment here where everybody has a chance to grow and to be themselves. And I've had a front row seat to it my entire life, going back to Omaha, Nebraska. And more than anything else, I'd like to handle myself with the type of class he's shown for 55 years, which is an unbelievable number. Congrats to him on an amazing coaching journey. And kind of as he said, could everybody please stop asking him if he's going to play more golf? He is going to get players and see players. So I'm very honored to be the next head coach of the Washington Mystics. I'm going to do everything I can to help us win another WNBA championship. And it's my privilege now to introduce, as our new assistant, well, not new assistant general manager, but assistant general manager and senior vice president of strategy and vision, Maria Giovannetti.
Thanks, Eric.
Giovannetti.
Thank you. And thanks, everyone, for being here today. I wanted to thank, first of all, Ted Leonsis and Sheila Johnson for their support and commitment to our team, for giving us the tools and resources to be successful. We've been able to build a special culture here with the Mystics that elevates our player experience and supports building a championship roster. And I'm committed to the Mystics as being the best in the WNBA and excited about what the future brings. Thank you to Coach T. It has been an honor to work with you the past 10 years and watch your brilliance as a coach and a GM ultimately lead to our WNBA championship. Congratulations on a truly remarkable coaching career, and I look forward to the next chapter. Thank you and congratulations to Eric and LaToya Sanders and our entire staff. A lot are in the room today. You pour your energy, hard work, and passion into our team always. And it's a pleasure to come to work every day knowing I'm surrounded by the best, committed to success in everything that we do. Thank you to my wife, Veronica. I'm grateful every day for your love and support. Right now is an exciting time for our team, our organization, and our fans. We're ready to build on last season's playoff berth, and the momentum here in DC is strong. Thank you.
Okay, just the one last thing before questions, because she's not here at the table. She's in North Carolina working. I would be introducing LaToya Sanders as our new associate head coach. LaToya is a very special person in our group. As a player, she was somebody who kind of demonstrated what real great teammates look like. And I'm already getting emotional about that because, when you watch a player grow up and then they move on to the next phase of their life, and as a coach and now as an associate head coach, she wasn't even sure she wanted to coach. And what she has discovered that we kind of already sensed that she's really good at it. And we're looking forward to what she brings. Obviously, Shelly Patterson's not here also. She joined our staff last year. And Eric's off to a good start with good assistant coaches. We're going to hire one more sometime in the near future. We started that process of interviewing, but we have a lot of good things in store, and so it's exciting to have this kind of staff and where we're going with it. I have all the faith in the world that what we have going forward with Eric and Maria and LaToya is nothing but greatness for our players. And so with that, we'll open it up to questions.
All right, we're going to start with your person, Kareem.
Hey, y'all. Congratulations, all three of you, first of all. I'm going to start with you, Eric. You just said it a minute ago, all your life has kind of been leading up to this moment. What's it like now that it's finally here, whether it's exciting and nerve-wracking, or it doesn't really feel like that much because you're here every single day? I'm just curious what this moment is like, with Mom and everybody in the building.
Probably all of the above, Kareem. No, I feel it's humbling when you just kind of, as Coach said off the top, you get so many people that reach out, and you just realize all the people that have been a part of your life as you've not only just grown up but gone into coaching. And I don't take it for granted, and I don't take for granted the special group that we have here and what's been created and the opportunity that sits in front of us. And so, start the day this morning bright and early on the court, and here we are now at a press conference, and I love all parts of this job. And that's one of the things that really is, attractive to me about our operation here is everybody's got a hand in everything. Everybody's collaborating and working together, and I think it's just a special thing we have going.
And just one quick follow-up, a lot of times when there's a new coach, everybody wants to know, how are you going to put your fingerprints on this? But this is obviously a different situation where, your fingerprints are already all over this franchise as it is. So I'm curious, how do you envision kind of putting your stamp on it, even though your stamp is already kind of on it, and how you, I guess, visualize, I guess, some of the minor things of how you'll operate things kind of moving forward?
Sure. When, every offseason, after the season, whether we've won the championship or missed the playoffs or had a good season, we're going to evaluate everything we do top to bottom. And that's everything from our roster to our staff, to our style of play, what we're running, our schemes. But we also look at things like the structure of our practice day and how we help our players be physically ready to go. So we may tweak some things around just our daily operation. We know we need to tweak some things offensively and improve in some areas to have a little bit better balance to our team. So and other people on staff now will have a little bit more of a voice in, not that they've never had a voice, but that they'll have more involvement running drills, having hands-on work in practice. And so all of those things will adjust a little bit. But I think at the center of everything we've done is our player development, and that's going to continue to be the core of what we do. Everybody that walks in this door here should feel like they have a chance to get better, whether they're a rookie in their first training camp or a vet, somebody that's been with our team for 10 years. So I think that's set us up for success in a lot of areas.
Hey, everybody. Congrats. I'll start with Eric. You've been heavily involved with the day-to-day operations of this team and coaching and practices and running that sort of stuff. But now that you're the person at the top, how does your day-to-day evolution with this team change?
Well, the decisions stop with me more, right? Like that's, I would say the first thing is, before as an assistant, you give input, you give suggestions, you try to support the head coach, but now I know I'm the one that has to sit in that seat and make decisions about playing time and what we're going to run, when to call timeouts, when does the team need a little bit of a push on a day between games, and when do you throttle back? So I think thinking about all of those decisions, giving myself the mental space to sit and consider those things, and rely on my staff to support me, to support our players, to manage them and how we operate on a daily basis is probably where I'm going to spend a little bit more of my time.
And then, Mike, this is a day that you've kind of alluded to for several years. Is it meet expectations for what you were thinking would be happening? Is it exactly how you envisioned?
I don't know if I had a vision of this day. I just had a vision of, my vision is more like May, whatever our first game is, and what our team looks like, and sitting in the stands, being nervous, watching him coach and a different staff, and Maria and I, looking at each other sometimes like, okay, did we get the right player? Did we do this? I'm very excited, and I would be, and I don't mean this in disrespect to Eric in a sense, but if it was anybody that I felt should be the head coach of this team after I left, I would be proud. But it's a little bit more special, to be honest, to watch your own son coach a team, because he's grown up in pro basketball for a long period of time, both when I was in the NBA and in the old CBA and, in the W. And I think I'm excited because he's had an experience as a coach growing up that a lot of people don't get, in the sense that he's got to see it from different angles. He's been a player, he's been an assistant coach, he's been in college, he's been at this level, he's been around NBA guys when he was growing up. And so his life's experiences as a coach are certainly way ahead of where I was at the same time. And I was a young coach in the NBA, but I was nowhere near as knowledgeable as he is today. And I think that's an exciting thing for me. I said this, and I mean this in all sincereness. He is a way better coach right now than I was at the same time. And I think that should be exciting for our players, for our fans, that we have a chance to continue something special here and even keep getting better. And that's an exciting thing, and it makes you proud of no matter who you are. Like I mentioned a little while ago, I'm proud for LaToya because she's transferred from player to coach and done all these things. But it is extra special when it is a member of your family. Can't deny it.
And a quick follow. Now that you are only going to be the GM, does that make that role easier for you or harder? Or because you've done both for so long, especially with this team?
I don't think it's going to be harder. We've kind of all been aligned, the three of us, for a long period of time on how we view what this organization stands for, what it needs. We have our disagreements, but we've been smart enough to not take it home with us, that they are normal disagreements that coaches have on a coaching staff. I've always wanted input from everybody, and I allow it. I'm stubborn about some things, as they will tell you. But I think that, we'll have healthy discussions about roster decisions or about a trade or about the draft, but they're the same ones we've been having. And I don't know that would change that much. All three of us have we meet daily, every day we're in the office and bounce ideas off each other. And I don't think that's going to change. I'm just going to stay out of their coaches' meetings, getting ready for practice and not worrying about that. My meetings with them will be about personnel and overall philosophy and what we're looking for in the draft and those kinds of things.
Eric, congratulations to all three of you. But you mentioned that there's going to be some more opportunity for people doing drills on the court. Does that mean you're going to be doing less of those things, and if so, are you going to miss it?
I'm not going to be able to help myself getting my hands dirty with a little bit of everything, but no, I think I'll be pretty hands-on, at least initially. I don't know if that'll last a year or 5 years, but I think it's important, at least right off the bat, for me to have strong input on the court into what we're doing and how we're going to do things. But when we have somebody like LaToya coming up on the staff, that we know what kind of defensive player she was, and a lot of that was up here, it would be crazy for me not to have her get more involved and develop as an on-the-court coach, especially with things like our defense. So, no, I envision myself still being involved, even in player development. But it's an opportunity for everybody to step up and take a bigger piece of it.
And Mike, I was just wondering, Eric mentioned 55 years. How do you think have basketball players changed a lot in that time, and if so, how?
They're bigger, faster, stronger, particularly in this league. I think the great competitors, the great players are always that way. You're going to get the same. I think the skill sets have obviously changed. I remember getting scolded by my high school coach for throwing a behind-the-back pass. I would encourage it nowadays. So that's part of the difference in, the ball handling and shooting skills have gotten better. I think what's changed all of sports, and this is not on the court or on the field, is social media. And I think that there's much more scrutiny of everybody. If you had a game, I was on the Lakers staff when our final championship game in 1980 was on tape delay. Now everything's instant. I mean, within 2 seconds, you guys could all be out there, and the rest of the world, I guarantee you, 5 minutes when we're done here, all the rest of the world will know something that they didn't know, before. That's a big difference because it puts much more pressure on athletes to be scrutinized and to feel a different kind of pressure. Pressure probably years ago was from their parents or their best friend or their spouse. Now it's from everybody. How many likes, dislikes did I get? Those kinds of things. I think that's what's changed more than anything. I think the players that are competitive still want to be great. They still do the same work. They come in with the right mindset, but they get more from the outside on them.
My question is for Eric. So coming from an assistant coaching staff to a head coaching role, what kind of lessons that you learned as that assistant coach are you trying to instill in your own staff?
I think the importance of seeing the big picture at all times and not just how we see it from our specific role is really important for everybody on the staff. One of the things the last few years, even just going to be the associate head coach, was the importance of keeping the ship steady through ups and downs. And it's been a roller coaster. The world has been a roller coaster. It's been a roller coaster in our league. But I think when we stuck together as a group, when we connected with our players, when we kind of went back to our basics as a staff and as a team in terms of our philosophy and our values, I think that's something that everybody can get aligned on in a staff, whether you're the intern that's there for a summer or whether you're the head coach, associate head coach.
And then, Mike, as the winningest coach in WNBA history, how have you watched the league evolve over the past couple of decades?
I think the first thing I said a few minutes ago was part of it. I mean, the athletes are different. They start younger. They work on skill things. I mean, when I first got into even the NBA, you had back to the basket centers who only did that. Now look at our league and you see Elena Deladonna, Brianna Stewart, people like that who are just like NBA guys. They've redefined the game. They're ball handling post players that can shoot the three and they can post up. We've seen that at both the men's and the women's game. I think when I first came in the W 20 years ago, the average daily post player was 6'2" or 6'3". Look at what we have now. We have a Shakira Austin who's 6'6", who can handle the ball and run the court and block shots, but still see her out here working on her three-point shot. Might not let her shoot it yet, but she's working on it. And I think you see a lot of that as a big difference. The other part is when I first came in the WNBA, was more like a college game. We played with a 30-second clock. Zone defenses were allowed. A lot of the coaches at that time had come from a college background. Now we've had several generations of players who have had an aspiration to be in the WNBA. They've grown up with the WNBA. A freshman in college right now who's 18 years old, the WNBA's been there their whole life. We had players, when I first came in the league was only 5 or 6 years old. And so they weren't thinking about being pro players. So a lot of that has changed. I remember, as simple as fans not wanting you to trade their favorite player because they really fell in love with that player, whether they were a good player or bad. They fell in love with a player. Now it's like the same anywhere else. Hey, you're not getting it done. We got to do this. We got to move this. That's a whole new world in the game since I first came in. So that's probably a really big difference.
I think I'm back up next.
All right.
I've got one for Eric and one for Maria. I'm curious, how do you anticipate your relationship with players changing a little bit? Because a lot of times the assistant coach is someone that players can kind of go to when, quite frankly, they're mad at the guy in charge, when they're mad at Mike or that kind of thing. There's a different relationship there than with the head coach. And I'm curious how you anticipate that evolving as you slide over. And ultimately, you're the one they're going to be mad at when they don't get enough minutes.
I'm sure there'll be differences. I think you would probably agree that one of the most important things for the head coach is your relationship with your best players, your core players, and the trust that you have that you will be on the same page when it matters. I think I'm fortunate that I've spent a lot of time with our core group that's here, and even in the past couple of weeks, just having conversations with them, just to make sure that they have a clear understanding of how I want the team to operate, how I think we can all work together. But there's going to be differences, right? When you control the purse strings on playing time, it's going to be a little bit different. And that's where I feel exceptionally fortunate to have a great staff that has also long relationships with this group of players that's been here. And so I know that'll be different, but I think that, you know, the time that we've all invested in each other is going to be what keeps us strong together.
And I want to ask about the new title. You know, we know that you've been behind the scenes, handing your hands on a little bit of everything, but with the new title, what do you envision from that? And could you just kind of share a little bit more about those responsibilities and what you think you'll be doing with them?
Sure. So as assistant GM, I've been very involved in team operations, delivering on an exceptional player experience here in DC, being the connector to both Monumental Basketball and on our business side. And in this new role, I'll continue to do those things, but I'll also have a focus on roster construction, free agency strategy, salary cap management, and be more involved in our college scouting process.
Excited?
Oh, yeah, yes, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll turn it over to Zoom now. We will start with Jen.
Hey everybody, congratulations. Maria, let me start with you, just piggybacking off of that. You know, I know you've been through Mystics coaching changes before, you know, maybe the longest tenured employee at this point. But what is it like for you just seeing this transition from Mike to Eric, having worked with both of them for so long?
Yeah, I'm extremely happy for both of them. Eric has been with our team for a decade. He is ready for this position. I'm confident in him as our head coach moving forward. We're lucky that Coach T isn't going anywhere. He's obviously still serving in the role as general manager. It will be a bit different not seeing him on the sideline, but I think the future is bright and we're all excited.
And Eric, for you, you know, Mike has been talking for a long time about how you've been ready to be a head coach. I feel like I've heard that for years now at this point. When did you know that you were ready to be a head coach?
I think probably around the time, maybe the year before we won the championship, I felt ready. You know, I had interviewed a couple places, and not to rehash all that history, but you just start to think more about the picture, besides the X's and O's and the scouting and the game strategy. You just think more about how you would run the team, what you would say, what your messaging would be day to day. And so as, you know, the years have gone by since then, you know, my first focus is always doing my job and being as good of an assistant as I could be. But you do think about, okay, tough loss last night. We've got to come in and pick the group up today. What would I say? If I was walking in and in charge of the meeting, what would I say? What would my message be? So I think started thinking a little bit more in those terms, and I think it helped me be a better assistant, quite frankly. And so, you know, once I kind of had a clear picture of how I would handle those moments, I knew I felt more ready.
And last thing for me real quick for Mike, I know you've known for a while that when the time came you would give up the head coaching reins and move solely to GM. What went into the decision that would be the route that you would go as opposed to giving up the GM job and staying longer as the head coach?
A couple of people, my wife asked me that one day. I actually said, what, you know, the job you enjoy the most, you're going to give up. I'm really comfortable with that. I got my start in the NBA as a scout before I became an assistant coach on the floor. I'd been a coach. I mean, I coached, you know, in high school and as assistant coach in college. But I've always enjoyed that part of, you know, putting the pieces together of a puzzle to make sure that your team fits. You have the right chemistry, that your skill sets match. That part has always interested me. I did double duty for many years in the NBA before we had the large staffs that we have now, where I was a director of player personnel and an assistant coach. So I kind of went back and forth between the two positions. So it always felt comfortable for me to do those kinds of things. I think the other part of it is, I think that as the GM, I was ready for Eric to be the head coach. I was ready for Maria to take on more of the responsibilities, and I can be a sounding board for them, but it's kind of like, let them do their thing now. And I have the title of GM, but somewhere down the road, they're going to be fully in charge of this. And so they can use me as whatever they see as a resource at this point. I think that I can now sometimes step back and take a different view of our team sometimes without having to think about, I'm going to coach the game the next day too. And I think it's we're going back to a different kind of model in our league a little bit. For several years now, we've had a lot of coaches and be the same as the GM. And I think, that worked for a while, but, as we've had a new collective bargaining agreement and salary and roster construction and salary cap management becomes more important, it gets harder as a coach to coach the players that you're also negotiating contracts with. No matter how you do it, I think at times, I've certainly have faced it here. You're having a salary discussion with an agent, and the player, starts, taking a little bit personal, and it's not. As a GM, you're trying to stay within a cap management 4 or 5 years out, and what that's supposed to look like. So it's not personal, but now you got to go coach that player too. And so I think that will take some pressure off of the head coach, because he doesn't have to deal with that part of it right now. And I think that's a dynamic that's come back in our league that'll be important.
Thank you all.
Jackie?
Hi all, congratulations. I'm actually going to start with Maria in building off of what Mike was just talking about. And so I'm curious, Maria, if you can explain how working on roster construction is now a year-round type of endeavor, one that maybe a few years ago wasn't a thing, and how also the idea of league expansion in the future makes this job one that, you need one person looking at it for the whole year.
Yeah, quite honestly, I don't know how Coach T and others have done it, being the GM and the head coach, for the exact reason that he's stated. I look at having a separate role as beneficial for everyone who's involved. The coaches can really focus in and hone in on the X's and O's, and the general manager and the assistant general manager, in conjunction with others on the staff who are responsible for scouting and re-signing current players or signing free agents, to really focus on that. I love what we have here in Washington and the way that we have set it up, and what Coach T has established, and that everyone on our staff from top to bottom has a voice in these types of roster decisions. And yes, there is a final decision maker, but for many years we've all been involved in various aspects of the process. And so I'm excited to continue in this role, expand upon some of the responsibilities in the area of roster construction and free agency and college scouting, and continue these fruitful conversations that we have as a staff, kicking options A, B, C, and D around on a daily basis.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Eric, for you, again, congratulations. Kathy Engelbert has spoken a lot about how there's a huge focus on former players getting coaching positions in this league, and how there is even some sort of specific initiative toward this. So I'm curious if you can shine a light on exactly what you know about what the program or initiative has looked like, and how that informed you all of making the decision to elevate Latoya in particular.
I'll take those things a little bit separately. For starters, you now have a generation of players who played in the league who are now going into coaching. We have 26 years now of players who are now entering the next phase of their career. So that pool has gotten a lot bigger as well. We were part of the initiative a few years back that said if you hired a former player on staff, you were able to have a third assistant coach.
We actually introduced that measure.
And at the time, Asia Jones was the first one on our staff that was that. And then we were actually, for a brief moment, going to have Asia and LaToya together before Asia ended up in Portland. And so that, that's something we're always going to be looking to do with our staff, is to give not just former players, but people from all different backgrounds a chance to be part of the Mystics staff and to grow here and to move up here. And LaToya specifically just deserves it. I mean, LaToya, former player or not, is just a brilliant person, a great emotional quality about her, and intelligent and fiery, even though she doesn't always show it publicly. So that was just a no-brainer for us in terms of giving her a larger role here.
I appreciate that so much. And Mike, and lastly, Mike, for you, right now there are 2 open GMing positions in the league in Connecticut and LA. And I'm curious if you believe the way in which those will be filled might reflect this young and up-and-coming class of executives in the W. You have Maria, who is staying. Cheryl has Claire, who we aren't sure yet if she will be elevated to GM or if she'll be going elsewhere. And there are others out there, like Ohima in New York and Darius in Atlanta. So how do you describe what we might be seeing in the GMing role across the league right now?
I'm not going to speak for other owners and what was mostly important to them. If it were me in that seat, I would want to hire somebody who has a great working knowledge of the league. I think that's the first thing. Age doesn't really matter as much as it is that you have to know the league pretty much inside and out. You need to know the salary cap. You need to know all the ramifications. I think those people will be people who have, like you mentioned, have had experience in the league. But I don't know that I would have a prototype other than it would be very difficult in those situations to hire somebody without that kind of historical sense about what's going on, particularly since the new collective bargaining agreement came in a couple of years ago. It's gotten more difficult. Long-range planning, for a while we had a lot of teams that you had, a max contract. You had 5 players on your team that were max contracts because that's just how it worked out. That doesn't exist anymore. And so you really need to know where your bottom level salaries can be and where your top are, and how to manage the middle a little bit. And, how many great players can you sign on one team as we look ahead to, possible expansion in the next couple of years. What players or contracts are going to come up at a certain time and who you're going to protect. There's just more added levels as you go forward. And then I think, kind of knowing as a talent evaluator, kind of trends, where the league is, what works in the league, what succeeds. Knowing, I think it was, and it happened to me when I was in the NBA first. When the 3-point line came in, there were a lot of NBA teams at that time, not prepared to deal with how that was going to change the game. There's always something coming that kind of differentiate maybe the kind of players you look for to fit. And then you just have to have a sense about, how to balance team chemistry. You have to be able to work well with your head coach. And I think that head coach GM relationship is really important at every team. And so I think you have to put that into perspective also.
Thank you. Congratulations to all of you.
Christy.
Hello, everybody. Congratulations across the board. Thrilled for everyone's next chapter. I can't even tell you. Just 2 quick ones. First for Mike. Mike, I remember you telling me that Eric learned how to do math by doing stats when he was little. What kind of advice have you given him, or will you give him, to be just a fantastic pro coach? And Eric, for you, what kind of mentorship have you learned from your father, and not only as a coach, but your impending fatherhood as well?
Ooh. I don't know that I have a particular thing of advice right now. I mean, I think in our family and with our staff, basically a lot of the advice is to be who you are as yourself. Be your natural, true self. People know if you're not. I think one of the things that I have been able to pride myself on, although it probably has gotten me in trouble a few times, is that I'm very direct about a lot of things. And there are times that players don't want to hear that, but sometimes they need to hear it. And I'm probably pretty direct about a lot of things. And over the course of time, I've learned how to balance that a little bit better. Sometimes you don't need to open your mouth. I'm getting probably a look of, well, when did that happen? But I think that, being your true self, being honest with your players is as important as anything. Stick to your basics. You know who you are, and stick with that. I don't have a lot of other advice. I mean, we'll have X and O's talk. We'll have philosophical talks about the game, but those are kind of ongoing throughout our family life and life in the office every day. The last part of it's probably more, and it's not an advice thing because I think he already knows this as well as anybody, but we talk about it. And it's a rude awakening sometimes when players kind of hear you talk about this or new coaches come in. We come in every day to work looking at our roster and other rosters, and the overlying factor every day is how do we get better? That's where you start every day with, is how do we get better? Whether it's, can we do something better on the court that day? Can we tweak our roster? Do we need to do something else? But that's got to be the overriding. And we tell our players that. Can you be a little bit better when you walk out of the gym on the day you come in than when you walked in that day? And so that's kind of an overriding philosophy with us in general.
Christy, was I jumping right into fatherhood? Is that where I was starting?
Yeah, jump right into that part, because I know that you were right at your father's knee when he was in the gym and coaching, and I don't know, as soon as that announcement was made, I just remember that story about Mike saying that you learned how to do like math and addition, subtraction, and all that.
I think the biggest thing probably that I got from him and that is that it always seemed fun. Like, coaching always seemed like a fun job, and you see coaches sometimes who seem miserable, like they're at the end of their rope, and everybody has those days, but it always seemed fun being around a team, being in that environment. I got to be around a lot of great coaches from a really young age all the way up through today. So I think that's what I picked up from the way he coached and the way he worked more than anything. And then just as general parenting from both him and my mom was kind of like he mentioned, be yourself. I was never pushed into coaching or any other profession, but you were trying to do your best and treat other people the way you wanted to be treated. And I'm fortunate not just to have great parents, but we've got, my wife and I, just in this community of our staff, have some amazing parents like Maria and Veronica and Latoya and Byron and little baby Semi, who we all love. And other people on our staff. Ketsia standing right here with her 3 little ones. So we've had players that have had kids and have been great role models as parents. Tiana Hawkins is as good as example as anybody. So I've been really fortunate to be around all those people, and it's a village here that I'm so lucky to be a part of.
I love it. Love y'all. Thank you.
My daughter thinks I'm a player, and I have yet to break the news to her. Alina Deladon, to be specific, when she watches games on TV.
Christos?
Hello, first congratulations. Question for you, Mike. When was the first time you realized that Eric could be a good head coach or a high-level coach?
Boy, he was pretty young. I probably knew it when he was very young, probably in college. when he came back and worked with my team in Connecticut and did player development. You don't know how long that process is going to be. I had thought at one time about trying to talk him out of coaching. That didn't go real well.
You didn't try that hard. I mean, to be frank.
Just and part of it was when I took the job here. Ted and I and Sheila and I had talked about hiring. How does it look? Hiring your son, and what does that entail? And obviously, Ted has had experience with that, and at that time, the Washington football team had the Shanahans, I think, at that time, and those dynamics. And I talked to a couple of our players that I had coached, Asia Jones and Carol Lawson. I said, how do you think this will work? I mean, as a young coach, and they said, you're crazy if you don't hire him. He's going to be great, and they were right. And so, if I didn't think he was going to be ready for this, I wouldn't have recommended it to our ownership group. Fairly or unfairly, I still have my reputation as the GM on the line, and it's incumbent upon me to hire a coach that is ready for this, and I have felt strongly about that, or we wouldn't have named him associate head coach 4 or 5 years ago, that he was going to be ready for that. And I said earlier, I think he's way ahead of where I was at the same age. He's ready for this, and I think he'll be a star at it.
Thank you very much. A question for you, Eric. I know it's too early, but what can you describe as your philosophy as a head coach? What can we expect from the team under your direction?
I think we've always tried to build a culture here based around respect and unselfishness. We have an identity, probably when we've been at our best, about sharing the ball and moving the ball, spacing the floor, playing with great energy, and everybody being really connected on the defensive end. We have a situation where we were the best offensive team in the league a few years ago, and this past year we were the best defensive team. And now we're just going to try to find a little bit more balance as we go forward. So we need to play a little bit faster. We know that. We need to be a little bit better in transition in our early offense. So we're going to try to play with a little bit more pace. I don't know that we're going to suddenly be the fastest team in the league, but we're going to play with a little bit more pace. We're going to get back to having great spacing and sharing the ball, and try to keep some of that defensive edge that we've found more recently. And really hang our hat on that end of the floor as well. So, just a brand around being unselfish, sharing the ball, shooting the ball, and being really tough to play against every night.
Thank you very much. Congratulations again.
Thanks.
Last question to Nathan.
Good afternoon, everybody, and congratulations. This question is for Coach T and Coach Eric. Coach T, as the winningest coach in the W, when you look at the impact you've made, what is one thing that you could tell people that the greatness that you've impacted different franchises, Connecticut, Washington? What's one thing you want to tell people? What's one thing you want to be remembered for as the winningest coach?
I've never cared whether I got known as the winningest coach. What I would like is for our own players to feel like when they've walked away from this, they are better players and better adults, better human beings for being a part of this experience. I think that's a major part for me. It's part of our culture. We talk about it with our team constantly, about being great teammates and learning to become great leaders on their own. I think the other part of it for me, because I've been in the league for 20 years, I would like to think that over the course of 20 years, I've somehow helped grow the league and women's basketball by what we've done, by whatever example we've been able to set, but advance the game. I think that the league in general has grown up a lot, and I would like to think that I had a part in that somehow, and be remembered for that. At the end of the day, you don't remember the wins and losses. You remember all the people that you came in contact with. And it's funny, I was talking with some other coaches in the league and some former coaches the last 2 days, and we were all commenting on, it's a tight-knit league. You got 12 teams, and we're fierce competitors on the court, and we all want to be good. But I think these guys would tell you we've been able to forge great relationships with some of the people that are our biggest competitors. And that's part of life. I mean, we play a kid's game, and we get paid for it, and it's fun. We should remember that it's fun. But I enjoy the journey part a lot. I really have. I like the camaraderie of our staff going out for dinner the night before a game on the road. I like, sitting down with coaches that, I've just competed against or I'm going to compete against, and just talking about the game and where we are. That part for me is still special, and it's probably what I'll take away from this game as much as anything else.
And then for you, Coach Eric, when you look at your father, obviously, the success that he's had in the W, other coaches that you've looked up to as well, is there like any philosophy that you've seen or learned and kind of incorporated into now being the head coach?
Yes, he's obviously the biggest influence. I got to work as a graduate assistant for Kim Barnes-Arico, and I thought I really, that was back in St. John's before she was at Michigan, and I saw how she built a program through her energy and her fight and the way she empowered her staff, many of whom are head coaches now. And, I was fortunate to be around people like Scott Hawk and Bernadette Maddox in Connecticut, who were just such loyal assistants and always had his back, but also learned how to be the ear for the players and a confidant for them, and how to walk that line. People like Terry Stotts, who was an assistant with my dad in Milwaukee, but the way he was able to just be direct and matter of fact, but always did it in such a humble or kind way. And I think people like that just have had a huge influence on the way I think about how I want to coach and how I want to lead our team and work with our players.